Hi, Sam. Yes, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Okay, all right. Sorry, I didn't notice that. Okay, we back.
Great.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Just to make sure you saw, did you see the announcement that we're gonna have a session for Barry next Saturday?
Yes, I know about that. So I did a little experiment having our GCC GPT identify 10 profound nuggets of wisdom from Barry.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
Back
I
to
got right here in front of me. I could
yeah.
practice reading them. Okay, number one, power versus truth. Then it gives quotes under each one. Rather than politics versus science, I would say perhaps power versus truth.
Hmm.
Okay, number two, on mismatched values in leadership. Are you renting my brain or are you renting my obedience? In a response to a boss who dismissed rational discourse.
Yep.
Now, do you remember him saying that at any time? Or this may have been
Don't.
like,
I remember he told this story about his boss where his boss said, you make people think or something like that,
uh-huh,
you know? And then Barry would follow that up with saying something like, I didn't know that was a compliment or not.
uh-huh. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is emotional disconnection and trust. It probably presages a disconnect in the relationship if it's serious enough about not being trusted when honest. So if he's being honest and people don't
It's,
trust him.
I don't, I get the theme.
Hmm.
Don't remember him saying those exact words.
Yeah, I don't know if any of this is hallucinated or what, but it's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heiner
Welcome,
just
Heiner.
joined. Yeah.
By the way, for the record, Heiner was here yesterday as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Please do
Yeah.
continue though. Hey, Heiner, what we're in the middle of is Eric is recapping a Chat GPT constructed, 10 bits of wisdom from Barrier, paraphrase, but Eric, you can correct me if I said that wrong.
Yeah, that's what it is. I just prompted, please identify 10 profound nuggets of wisdom from Barry Court. And it's based on our transcripts of all our YouTube videos. So I'll go back to number one, power versus truth. Rather than politics versus science, I would say perhaps power versus truth. Number two, on mismatched values in leadership. Are you renting my brain or are you renting my obedience? In response to a boss who dismissed rational discourse. Number three, emotional disconnection and trust. It probably presages a disconnect in the relationship if it's serious enough about not being trusted when honest. You like this one. Number four, the dark tetrad of personality. Trump was a poster child for the dark tetrad: narcissism, sociopathy, Machiavellianism, and sadism.
No, that I remember him saying multiple times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Number five, the value of accuracy and trust. As somebody that wants to be trusted, it's very important for me to try and be accurate. Okay. Number six, reflection on career legacy. In terms of the final piece of technical work in my career, this is my magnum opus, referring to his research on emotions and learning. Seven, accessible narrative in science. If you have an audience that doesn't wrap their brain around the math, the narrative is digestible. I like that. On communication and metaphors. Using words metaphorically is so bloody confusing. A lot of your audience will think you're using the word literally. And that makes a lot of sense, especially people who have some spectrum. Number nine, scientific discourse versus power play. In science, you should be able to eventually resolve it. But if someone just pulls out a card and says, I'm the CEO, that's not a discussion.
Actually, that was me.
Ah, okay.
So
So it was attributed.
ChatGPT confused something that I said with what Barry said.
Yeah, but we'll give it to Barry. Yeah, because it doesn't, the transcripts that it used don't identify the speaker.
Yeah,
So it's guessing here.
yeah.
And the last one, recognition of a disconnect. Once the pattern becomes tiresome and doesn't evolve, then what's the point? You're just spinning your wheels.
That is something Barry did say.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Although I could be mistaken since I'm hearing this on the first time. A couple or three sound redundant. Like this power versus politics thing. I thought that appeared in your list twice.
Let's see. It's possible. Well, scientific power versus politics. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So at least we got some nuggets of wisdom out
Yeah.
of ChatGPT.
You know, when you and I both attended the live video broadcast of his memorial service,
Yes,
I had just in case they had made it possible for people remotely to tell stories, I collected a couple of nuggets myself.
good.
So when we do this next week, I'll try to
Hmm.
go through that small list.
Yeah,
I don't know if you also noticed, Anna Marie, she created a group for friends of Barry, right? So she said, "Hey, let's all write things that we remember about Barry." And I sent in various different suggestions. I don't know if you've seen those.
is that a Facebook group?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Okay,
something
I don't.
Barry's name Moulton, Moulton. Hey, Stacy.
Hmm.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Stacy, just so you know, Eric had fed a bunch of YouTube transcripts through ChatGPT and said, "Give me like 10 top memes or,
And
say
nuggets of wisdom from
nuggets of
Barry.
wisdom from
Oh,
Barry." And
great.
he
Yeah,
had
so
just gone through some of it.
yep,
Yeah, for the
yeah, just
record,
a
it's not a
little
perfect list,
something. No,
but
but
it's at least something to go from.
yep. So
So that's a good check-in. Anybody else would like to check in before we dive deep? Eric, when we finish the check-ins, we'll recap, or maybe Stacy would, what we talked about yesterday.
sure.
Yeah, you could do it. I'm kind of tired. I'm just listening.
Mhm.
Partying too much last night, Stacy?
Yes.
I noticed that when you left the session yesterday, you said you're going to a party. So I was going to see how wild you got.
No comment.
That wild. Okay.
No, no, no. I didn't sleep well, and I fell back asleep and just woke back up.
Oh, so I shouldn't poke fun at you right now.
No, I'm okay. I'm just tired.
Okay, so my check-in for Stacy is Stacy went to a party. Okay.
I had a good time at the party. I had a very good time at the party.
Good. Very good. Heiner, how goes?
Well, maybe now I'm reporting a little bit deeper. I was really thrilled um, by the uh, summary which Eric did for Barry. He didn't do it on ChatGPT, but on this notebook LM. But I really looked into that notebook LM being based on the Google universe, and I found it really intriguing. Not only what came out about Barry, but I found that I had started a query with Notebook LM, and it was maybe in March, and I didn't wait it because it took some time. But now last week I really did a deep dive, and I have a question later to you technical people. What is the base of the learning when you create many notebooks? Is it learning between the different documents you have been inputting? Because what I experienced is really fascinating that there seems to be a learning curve around a common theme. In this case, it is me, but it could be also Barry. And I'm wondering, as we did 10 days ago, 4 days intensive sessions with the World Academy of Arts and Sciences, and all was inputted into AI. So these are also some sophisticated people, but I wonder where the learning is and how we can control it. So in the end, I refused to give my last summing up to be sent because I don't really know where it ends. I think it should be an interaction and should be transparent. So anyway, Eric, you got me really on a very weird tangent, and I don't want to talk here at this point now long. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just comment. I think we need to understand the context windows of all these different AIs, because I'm not sure if Notebook LM has enough context to keep other notebooks that you've created in its memory while it's answering a prompt. So that's my opinion, but I don't know the real answer.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't reviewed the policy or the architecture, but I believe that those separate notebooks are intended to be independent. That said, you don't really understand how Google's leveraging the content that you're feeding it. And I do note that in the same thread, it appears to be building on its understanding. And I don't work with Notebook LM as much as I work with Perplexity. Perplexity is cool because it actually can choose based on your query or based on your prompt. It chooses which LLM to use on the back end. So if you're asking something about medicine, it decides to go something, to ask something that's good about medicine. And if you ask it a coding question, it might go after something that's good about coding. So I noticed that in Perplexity, it adapts itself to what I'm asking. And so I don't know as much about Notebook LM, which is run by Google, however. That said, again, Google is kind of like the first masterful vacuum of all the world's data and all the world's information. So it does that in ways that we don't understand. That's all I can say.
Yeah, no, but Heiner, you're talking on mute
Yeah,
probably.
you're on mute, Heiner.
You see, I selected it because it has this very wide historic background of getting data which are not controlled, but somehow at least a little transparent. Because when I hear about other AIs taking all the stuff in from X and Twitter and whatever other dubious sources, then I wonder if I want to take this into my reasoning. So anyway, I was totally impressed because it's using the ability to really switch perfectly between languages. I put in a lot of German documents and it makes a nice summary in an English version. Or I put in English versions and it's outputting into proper German. So this is very intriguing for me. And so anyway, I just wanted to tell you, this is really weird because we are aware what we are asking when we do proper prompting, but the frame of references which is used to answer is not transparent. And I think this needs to be explored because otherwise it is still garbage in, garbage out, but maybe higher levels of garbage or higher levels of wisdom.
Well, my response to that is that that's why the open source models are so interesting. DeepSeek is one that claims to be open, and I haven't yet studied it enough to know that, whether or not the training sets are open. But certainly the models themselves are free to use and open. So the more that independent people like Eric and perhaps me and perhaps others can develop and push on the frontiers of these things, the better we can be transparent about it. But the big boys, the ones with hundreds of billions of dollars to throw at this, not all of them are open. I would actually say Facebook, with the release of some of the very first ones, uh, with very permissive licensing, actually set a good precedent. I don't like everything that Facebook does, but on this front, I think they took a good tack. Hopefully, they don't change. ChatGPT, on the other hand, from OpenAI, was started as an open source LLM, but it morphed itself. That's why, this big Sam Altman controversy happened, and so they've definitely gone closed. So again, Stanford is one of those places that did something very, very open, but that was built on some existing LLMs. Uh, but this whole area moves so fast that no matter what you say, it could be completely incorrect, a small number of weeks from now. And new players pop up, like, Tencent in China. And God, there's at least two or three from China, not just DeepSeek, that are really prominent. And oh, by the way, we're never going to catch up to China. Never. We have such confused, chaotic policy, whereas China is just, they know, they play the 50-year game. We're playing the next day, what stupid thing can I say game here in the US. I don't know about Europe, I don't know what they're doing. I know that the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, was over there about a month or two ago, and he was, I think, in France, recognizing all the partners who were actually, doing good stuff in AI, and probably Germany as well. So I don't know as much about what's going on there, but I'm not aware that they have, like, trillion-dollar companies devoting hundreds of billions of dollars into development of this thing. Not like we
I
have.
just heard he now invests into Berlin.
What did you say?
NVIDIA goes now with a big plant to Germany, either around Leipzig or Dresden.
Okay. Yeah, they can throw their money almost anywhere. It wasn't long ago that they actually moved, quote unquote, their headquarters to Texas. But now, with the recent falling out, they're also making noises now like they might be, moving their headquarters elsewhere. So Musk is, he can change his mind quickly. I mean, look at his relationship with Trump, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, hi, Kayla. Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning.
So just to catch you up briefly, I think Eric started off here with a mention that he had fed a bunch of our YouTube transcripts to ChatGPT and said, hey, tell me about Barry, top 10 pieces of wisdom or something like that. So he went through that, and then
Yeah, I'll reread it at Barry's service.
okay, cool.
Aw, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so, by the way, I was hoping at some point, maybe, near the end, we might be able to say a few things about how to prepare for next Saturday's session. And Stacey, if you want to lead us in that conversation, I think it'd be good. It doesn't have to be then. We could be now, I was just thinking we should probably do something like that today, since this is the last session we'll have before next Saturday's session for Barry. So what's happened with you in the last 22 hours, Kayla?
Not much. Just grocery shopping.
Mhm.
I made my Costco run yesterday as well.
It's awesome when you find like gift cards that were like in the bottom of your drawer. You're like, yay!
It's impossible to keep it under 3 digits, you know that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's just me talking. I'm not buying, hundreds of dollars of crab and lobster like you are.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We were doing all this in Turkish lira, it would probably be 10 digits.
Oh, speaking of which, some of the real estate I've been looking at is in Japan, where of course it's, like 4
Mhm.
to 10 to 20 million yen. And then you
Yep.
find out it's like, 20,000 to 50,000 to $100,000 US dollars.
Hmm.
But it sounds impressive when it said, oh, it's 12 or 16 million yen.
Hmm.
Oh, I did want to say that I spoke with my oldest yesterday evening, and I just felt like I had diarrhea of the mouth, but he ended up listening quite a bit with the state of the affairs and here in California, specifically. And then, yeah, we talked a little bit about you too, Sam.
Uh-oh.
So- And so, yeah, it was a really good conversation. Really happy that he's very receptive to everything. I just like word vomit with him, but it's mostly about our local politics here. So it's kind of nice to be able to actually speak with my 17-year-old son. You know.
Well,
So,
I'd be really curious to find out more. I'm going to channel Stacey now and say, since we're really focused on how we raise young men, young boys, I was really curious, how that went in some more detail, if you're willing.
oh, me?
Yeah.
It's just a regular catch up. Um, he has a new girlfriend, and I already knew that because I totally stalk him. Um, and it, anyways, after that, we were just talking about the grant that I had proposed, and just talking about the new administration and how we have to be really careful with the words that we use because our applications might be flagged or banned, and that it's like quite vanilla some of the things that we have to say. So instead of getting specific with the type of people that we had wanted to address, like LGBTQ and the marginalized community, or trans or BIPOC, we can't say any of those things anymore. And so we have to put it under the new umbrella of community, community dads, and then include just your traditional roles like, adoptive, divorced, single, widowed, et cetera, et cetera. So we can't be specific in the areas where we really do need to help the dads. So then I told him about the what was it, the letter that had come out from the Department of Justice, and how it's kind of circulating around our office, and everybody's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? So just to back up, there was an official letter from Washington from the Department of Justice really clamping down on how you utilize DEI. And
Nine
so,
pages. 9 pages.
uh, oh yeah, yeah. And so it was funny. I talked to Sam yesterday about it. Was it yesterday or the day before? I don't remember.
Something like that.
Um, I spoke with Sam about it, and I'm like, are you reading what I'm reading, which is basically, include the white people? That's how I felt that this was said, which is understandable to some point, but it was really interesting that, they had really said, like, you can't discriminate, period. And you're like, okay, all right. And so everyone was tripping out and saying what that meant. And I'm all like, yeah, you just have to generalize your wording. So I told him about that. He didn't seem too concerned. I mean, he is 17. But I asked him at one point if I'm just talking too much, or if he is not interested in anything that I'm saying, that please let me know because I'll stop talking about that. And he said, no, it's all really interesting. So I don't know if he's saying that because he's my son and he wants to make me happy, or if he is interested. So we'll see what his actions are. But I don't know. Maybe he's talking about it to his friends and he just doesn't want to tell me. So that's how it went. I also discovered that my son is popular. People from other schools know about him, and I'm not in that world. So the lanes that I can go into with my kids, I go into, but there are other lanes that I do not go into. So yeah, just trying to educate them one step at a time, just dropping bombs here and there. If they ask me questions and are interested in something specific, that's that's why I remain open to my kids. But I do try to tell them really important, the things that I think are very important to look out for, even if it may not pertain to their life at the moment. So over.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, sure.
Do you know if he, in this year or previous years, has studied anything like civics or social studies or the Constitution or U.S. history or modern history in the U.S. or even the Civil War?
Well, they do learn world history and US history in grade school. They also learn about Civil War, probably close to like anywhere between fifth grade to eighth grade. Um, they have to write about world history, but I find it all stuff that happened like millions of years ago. You know, I when they did study that, I asked them if there's anything interesting that they would like to correlate with current life events, and they said no. They find it very, especially if you're talking about the Mesopotamia or somewhere in another country, they kind of find it boring. Um, and I think it's because it doesn't relate to current life right now. So, but yeah, long story short, yes, they learn about all of that civics, social studies they learn in high school.
I
I'm
guess my
wondering,
more pointed question, sorry, Eric,
go ahead.
was whether or not slavery came up or whether any of that history had been like, I don't know, sanitized, for proper consumption by the innocent.
They learned about slavery, yes. They both had to write about, well, Max recently had to write about the Underground Railroad. I helped him with that because he had to do a presentation when it, came to slavery.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just your basic stuff that, at least here in the United States, I know Heiner is in another country, but, it's stuff that I'm pretty sure that you all um, have been taught, Eric and Stacey and Sam.
Okay.
Yeah, I had US history and world history in seventh and ninth grade, and there were regents exams we had to take. I was wondering, do they still teach how a bill becomes a law? Remember the Schoolhouse Rock? Yeah,
Yes, they do.
good.
In fact, it's too bad because they teach that in middle school, and when Damien was in middle school, they had lawyers come in. They went to our local courthouse. With Max, he had a change in teachers, so they didn't do that with him. But they did learn about civics and social justice.
Yeah, good. So yesterday I went to a yoga class, and it was a group in Wilmington, Delaware called Sisters Supporting Sisters. So they actually let a man do yoga with them. But it was fun because I knew the instructor. But um, I afterwards I was talking with some of them, and I realized what they have to deal with the kids don't respect adults at all. Some of the situations they're put into, um, and they have to really take a first step to show some authority and power to get the kids to respect them. I found that interesting to hear. I'm wondering if you've any of you have similar experiences.
Oh, totally. They're assholes
Hmm.
at every single fucking age. You do have to have a sense of discipline and they need it, and so, in some respects that they want it. Um, Otherwise they'll do as they will. But yeah, it's just up to the individual what they're teaching, how they do it.
Yep. So this group was formed during the pandemic to help connect people together and deal with the immediate local problems they were facing. So yeah, it's good educational for me. I'm over. One thing I had,
Please do.
yeah,
Go ahead.
one thing I had talked with Sam last week about was if there is interest in looking at some of the diagrams in Donella Meadows' book, Thinking in Systems, if we wanted to learn a little systems thinking. So I have the diagrams in a PowerPoint that I could show if we want to go there at any point in time in the future. But
Sure.
yeah, I feel like we're on a certain topic here that you want to continue with.
Actually, on that point, let me also say something that I think I did say yesterday and also previously, which is that I think it'd be cool for this particular forum to expand to look not just at the mathematic and scientific foundations and systems engineering and model-based reasoning piece of how that influences our decision making, our thinking, our planning, our action taking, but now to really expand and look at cultural influences. Cultural meaning, how does that affect those interoperations, especially in quote unquote this, I don't know if it's a good word or bad word anymore, this melting pot country where cultural influences are either appreciated or not, depending on who you are. And so yesterday we did spend a lot of time on at least one aspect of that, which is, kind of like, again, it's a bad way of phrasing it, but male, female, masculine versus feminine, male patriarchy aspects of the culture. That's not the only one, of course. There's other things like income, ethnic background, geographic background, I versus we, so there's a number of other ways that culture can be discussed. But I thought that would be an interesting way to expand the focus of this particular session. But keeping it, with this component of mathematics and scientific reasoning and systems modeling, et cetera, always a key component of it. Okay. So just wanted to put that out there again, since I don't think you were there yesterday. And Heiner, I don't know if you were there for that part of the session yesterday. Okay. Anyway, so I saw that Stacey did a thumbs up when you mentioned that, and Kayla's got her hand up now.
I know I'm speaking a lot this morning, but I do have a question for, I already know, Sam, your culture. You all know my culture or cultures. I would love to know what Eric, Heiner, and Stacey, how you would describe your culture.
Okay. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, so that's a whole culture by itself. Um, but I was well educated and I went to NYU. And so what I would say is it's a certain time, like times have really changed since my education and career. I think I don't think a lot of what I grew up with is relevant in the society today. It's like I have to relearn, and that means exposing myself to groups like yesterday. These are women in Wilmington and dealing with minorities and people. So it was important for me to hear that. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do is expose myself to more diversity here and there. So I don't really have a good perspective of what's needed right now. It's really just as I go where God puts me.
So, Eric, can I ask you a more specific question regarding culture?
Sure.
What do you think is the good aspect of your culture and the bad like one good thing about your culture and one bad thing about your culture?
Okay. I think our culture has led to a lot of progress in terms of academic, scientific, and but I'm not sure politically if we've been on the right path. So it's very general there, but I mean, I think academics was the big value instilled in me and people of my generation. Because I saw, yeah, parents worked very hard just to make a living, but they said, hey, if you kids can study and better yourselves, that was the thing. It was like out, having your children have a better lifestyle as they defined it, not knowing what the future would be at the time. Yeah. So I'm actually looking at a book by Daniel Pink from 2005, um, where he talks about, just trying to remember it. It'll come back to me, but it's a different mindset. So yeah, it'll come back to me later. Thanks.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, then you would describe the good aspect of your culture as being academic forward.
Valuing education. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then a bad culture could potentially be how politics are handled.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Stacey, I would love to ask you the same thing, and you don't have to answer in the same way, which I know you won't. And I just want to let everybody know that you can do things like say, I don't know, like in the Filipino culture, they would say food is a huge part of it. So just to kind of throw that out there. Stacey?
So it's hard for me to separate the culture, the influence of the culture with the influence of my parents because they're blended in together. Like Eric, though, I'll say that. So I grew up in the Northeast in New York. My first 10 years were in a place called Rego Park, which was very diverse but upscale. And so from the very beginning, education was always, that was the path to success, whatever success might be. But so early on, I saw a lot of different cultures. Then when I moved upstate, it was country at the time. It's not anymore. But there were not as many Jewish people. Whereas when I lived in the city, there were a lot of Jewish people, but there were also a lot of Black people. There were also a lot of um, Indian people, Asian people. So when I moved upstate, it was mostly white and not a lot of Christian people. A lot of the school activities were around the church, which felt very isolating for me because I wasn't a part of that. But I would go to the city on the weekends and go upstate for the summers. But I would say that education, whether in all those places, everybody knew the good people, the successful people, the right people went on to further their education. And the people that didn't do well in the educational system, there was something not desirable about that. Um, the good thing about the culture slash my parents is that people kind of spoke their mind in a way that they certainly did not do in the South. There was no bless your heart where I was. It was more like kiss my ass. Um,
Love it.
uh, and the food, I would say the food was more like that was like part of family and the Jewish culture as opposed to the greater culture because we would laugh. If we went to like a party from that was a Jewish or an Italian person, there'd be tons and tons of food. If we went to a party with like an Irish person, you better eat before you come. So there were certain stereotypes like that, which looking back were definitely tied to their financial situations. But as a kid, you don't notice that. So the best
Great.
I could say is that the economics had a lot to do with it.
What would you say is a bad part of your culture?
The male-female dynamics, as always. And but seriously, even like being in my like late teens and early 20s, I saw a difference culturally there too. Um, in my friends that were Jewish, there was a lot more respect for the women. Um, but it was still that negative thing. It was still like, oh, I got to do this, or it was like it wasn't the partnership between a man and a woman that I would prefer to see. I guess so the sex roles were pretty rigid, but less rigid in my family and the Jewish culture than in what was around me. And that was the worst part.
Awesome. Per usual, I'm walking around doing my morning stuff. Heiner, would you so care to let us know about your culture? I would love to hear that since we've got three Americans here.
Well,
Four, if you include me.
I have many cultures, so I don't really know how to answer that.
How about
I
the? Oh, go
I
ahead.
realized that the culture before I was born, I mean that it was until the Second World War, I was born directly after that, was very different, and the elders wouldn't dare to speak about it, or were just silent and could not bear it to speak, was something which in the general society allowed some openness. And this openness showed in our public media how diverse our channels are, that they are not just private, but really historic and civic, really, really going very deep. And also our school system, even when many of my friends said there were some blind spots in the history, but it's always about history that there are blind spots. So I was really raised to be thrown into an emerging culture in the West, which got me curious. I traveled around a lot. I worked I was not only lots in North and Middle America, but worked in international and 17 nation projects. And so I got the different mindsets and ways of thinking and how they structure sentences and meanings, which got me very cautious when I try to put it in something that we can share it, like with the World Press Center, which was on the desk before the internet. I mean, on the highest levels, it was not appreciated because our industrialized, Western, materialistic, and whatever culture is trying to make their turfs. So they don't want transparency. They don't want to bridge between mindsets and worlds of meaning. So anyway, I'm just a searcher being in so many worlds. I wouldn't dare to say I have a culture. I have many cultures. I'm very concerned how civic subjects are not taught, or taught in a very strange way, and not with alternative schools, but in a very weird educational system. I consider how America is learning and how they bring up the next generation. So I'm very concerned, but I didn't know how to answer your question. I hope I at least fulfilled some of what you wanted to know, Kayla.
No, that's great. No, that was perfect. Sam, may I ask you to repeat the original question regarding or statement regarding cultures?
Oh, I wanted to at least propose that we explore the influence of different cultures and backgrounds in the way we interact, the way we interoperate, and how that affects what I'm calling collaborology, how we align, how we understand each other, how we possibly misunderstand each other, how we work through disagreements. And those, I think, have lots of different styles and impacts based on culture. And I think, giving it some explicit visibility, I think will help us understand, how some of this works. I'll go through one example that we did yesterday, which is we spoke some about how Asians often self-deprecate. And that often is mistaken in the West when we do this, because then the immediate reaction I get is, oh, you're doing negative self-talk. That's not healthy. You should build yourself up. And so, you know, as an Asian, we understand what that is, okay? We understand that it comes across as negative self-talk, but people also don't understand the role of mutual respect, respect for elders, respect for, people with, significant backgrounds, especially your parents. Um, and self-deprecation is part of kind of establishing these tendrils of respect between people. And so Kayla and I share some of that, but we also had similar experiences when we, on occasion, speak humbly, what we consider with humility, and yet people take it as negative self-talk or worse. So that's just one aspect, that comes out over. There's many more, by the way. Yeah.
If you guys don't mind, may I tie in the commonality that was that I heard was spoken when I asked each of you guys to talk about your culture? So what I heard from everybody is that your culture all values education. What I heard from everybody is that there are several defining moments of you individually in your own perception of your own culture. What I did not hear is a commonality of what your culture, the negative aspects of your culture. And if I almost want to step a little bit more further, is some of the glaring, to me at least, negative aspects of a certain culture was not identified. And the reason why I say this is because the United States is a very new country compared to the rest of the world. And our culture has emerged. And it was really interesting to hear Heiner's perspective of Western education, specifically here in the United States, because that was a topic that everybody here had said that, at least in the worldly point of view, that education is a big part of their culture. Where am I going with this? Is like, it's such a classic of example of the ignorance we all have with one another and each other's culture. The power dynamics behind it and how it really affects our lenses. And it's common sense to everybody here in this room, I understand, but it may not be obvious to a lot of people. For instance, the self-deprecation that is obvious within our own culture, right, Sam? With most Asians, we all do it. We all know it. We all understand that, it's a thing to do. And it's not a bad thing in our eyes, but it is a bad thing in the eyes of Western society because it's self-deprecation and that's not good. There are no, Western society doesn't understand the nuances behind that, behind, the art of being humble, behind kind of, Stacey, you actually got some of it too, where it's kind of the other person's reaction to it was kind of us. It's like us reading the other person's reaction to our self-deprecation. Very subtle. So it's not entirely a bad thing.
Kayla, can I just
Yes.
ask a question?
Sure.
Or to you and Sam, both of you. When you talk about the self-deprecation, in that culture, do they do it even when they're speaking to someone who has lower status or power, or only when they're in equivalent? So Sam is saying no, but I'd like to know what your perception is.
Yeah, I would agree. No.
Okay, so even when you're talking to children.
Children see it though.
Well, but that's the important that's actually the piece that I think is most interesting because we teach by doing, which is what
Mm-hmm.
our culture in the States does not understand. So if I'm hearing from you that yes, we even do this when we're talking to children, that's the best way that children are going to copy it and replicate it. In our culture, we say, this is how you should do it, but I don't count. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut anybody off, so I'm gonna go off mic again.
No, that's great.
So I wanted to comment. You're asking about what are the negatives, and it takes time to draw out the negatives. And like it wasn't on the top of my mind, but then I realized, yes, I was exposed to a lot of ethnic humor, and that reinforced stereotypes. And that was a form of male bonding in where I grew up. Uh, and I didn't realize it. I mean, I felt uncomfortable, but it was all based on separation of the cultures. So this one lives here, this one lives here, and that we had that different neighborhoods based on ethnicity, and I don't think we have that as much these days. So that's a big generation gap. The other thing I was thinking about is how my career changed. When I started, it was mostly Americans. We were working on Wall Street and we were on top of the world, building a system, and we had a certain structure that certain like ways of working. And then it changed a lot as more Indian people joined our teams. And that was a shift that we had to adjust to. We had to learn about that culture. And there were some movies back in the 90s exploring that, Americans learning about Indian culture. And but I found over the years, I learned a lot from these people. And that that what the way they grew up and were educated and their discipline, there's something special about that Americans didn't really have. It, and we had to cooperate and get to the point where we could work together in diverse teams. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Stacey, have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to highlight something that Eric said because I think it applies in other situations, and I think we should really pay close attention to it if we want to affect things, which is that bonding happened by like that othering was used
Mm-hmm.
as a bonding method, practice. It was part of a bonding ritual, that othering. And I think that is really key to look at if we want to shift things.
I heard the same thing too, Stacey. That was one thing that stuck in my mind. And I just want to say, Eric, I find you to be such an incredibly kind person. The way you frame things, and I just really appreciate that. Um, and I also want to say that you're probably good for it to be the only guy in a yoga class full of women. So now may I just like kind of jump into, and please, Sam, if I'm hijacking your,
Oh, I like
I'll give you the
where you're
reins.
running this good. Good.
This last thing, I know, I was joking about how Sam and Eric are very techy, and because it's out of my league, or I feel it's out of my league, then I normally don't engage, and I normally have a terrible time listening. And so I just want to put that on the record that oftentimes when you guys rift on technology, I don't listen, and I wish I would. And I told and I just want to say that I am going to be better at trying to listen to that, because it's so important, and to tie in technology with, this perception on culture. I think it would be really instrumental to integrate that into education, kind of like what you were saying, Sam. Some of the recordings that you have, to talk about yourself or certain people, that you look up to, certain philosophers. That would be one way to teach children throughout an entire curriculum about learning about other cultures. That would be more interesting for them. So I just wanted to add that. I'm kind of thinking about that out loud. And yeah, I'm done taking the reins. Eric, you have your hand up.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is share a way that we can use technology for your purposes of better understanding each other. And there's a little experiment I did in ChatGPT. I just want to share my screen for a second. Here it is. Oh, not sure. This is called Charlie.ai. And what it is you upload files, and it's just based on the text in the files. So here I took 5 conversations from May from our group. These are publicly on YouTube. And what I'm interested in here are the topics that it identifies in each conversation. So this is helpful where I could say on May 10th, we talked about communication and interruption, social dynamics, cultural perspectives. Then I could compare it. Okay, May 11th, when I bring this one up, let's see. Yeah, but I could click through here, I could just pick a different. Okay, but see, now I'm not sure if many other tools do this where they break out topics and keywords like this. So it just jumped to May 18th, and we could see we were talking about human identity and social structures, misinformation, and some techy stuff too. But if we could focus it on the topics and zoom in, that would be great. I don't know how hard that is, but this is just based on the YouTube transcripts. So it's just a way that we can think about using the technology for human collaboration purposes. So if anyone has ideas of how that can work, like we can take each of our conversations, run it through this tool, and just copy out all the topics. And this brings me to Jack Park's topic maps idea as a bridge, but still forming in my mind.
I said I wasn't going to say anything, but I love it. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Eric. It was just beautiful. I saw that, and I have to say I was very happy at the summary in that particular instant. this would be amazing, in my opinion, to teach, children getting into the social setting, or even like it from a very young age, having AI be instrumental in breaking down, okay, this is what AI heard about your conversation.
Mm.
How can we reframe it a certain way? And then segue and dive into other topics that might, deal more scalable as they grow older, and become integrated into the larger community and how they might see things. So thank you for doing that. That's just amazing. I'm so happy that you're so techie that you would do something like that, because I would
Yeah.
never think about it.
But you
So.
see, you could bring in creative people as well to segment out the videos and combine them, just tell the stories. And I know Heiner was working with a video person for his material. Yeah. And Heiner's done things with indigenous people as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wonder if we could do that in my fatherhood cohort if I get the grant. So,
Sam, you're on mute.
Okay, thanks. Quick follow-up on that one. I think I've been anticipating when this kind of technology will be available. You've heard me refer to always waiting, and while this corpus of videos was growing and growing and growing, now we're being able to see, some automated ways to go sift through that. What I'm still hoping to see soon, and I don't know if any of you have found it, I haven't yet, is AI that can actually go through the actual raw audio and do speaker identification and things like, how did this person express? Was it calm? Was it animated? Was it anxious? Was it angry? Was it loud? Was it, well-formed? Was it ill-formed? Was it interrupting someone? Was it speaking over someone? Did someone interrupt that person? I'm still looking for AI to understand that, because so much of interaction is nonverbal, as you can see from the transcripts. The transcripts miss all of that. So once we have that level of capability, it's another whole level of things we can learn and gain insight from.
So do you think Otter AI or Read AI are close? Or
They and their ilk are going to be the first to get there. I know that, for example, when my son was at UC Santa Cruz, he was working on sentiment analysis, and so I'm sure that that work has progressed. He's been out of school now for about 10 years, so they've probably gone much further than they did when he was there.
yeah, my guess is it probably exists, but you have to pay for it now. And
If it
it would
exists,
be
I probably would be willing to pay for it, so even look, refer me if you actually know of one.
I don't know, but see, I'm also thinking about the work from MIT, the Media Lab Effective Computing, that would tie into this as well.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. In fact, that was one of the reasons I was so engaged with Barry.
Hmm.
I wanted to understand how his work and, this interest in collaborology meshed and could reinforce, insights,
Yeah.
from and to the other.
So from what I understand, like of Rosalind Picard's work, it's collecting a lot of sensor data of a student as they're working on a task and making inferences from the sensor data as to emotional state, and then deciding on possible interactions and having human experts review the AI recommendations to improve the quality of the AI over time.
Yeah.
So they've probably gotten somewhere.
I'm actually curious, how many of you have Android watches? Not everybody does, but do any of you have an Android or Samsung watch?
The phone, but it's
Okay.
not a watch.
So I noticed that when I got my Samsung watch, it was probably about 2 years ago. There's a very simple health app. I don't think you have to pay very much for it, if indeed it might even be free. But it gives you very regular readings, and I don't know exactly how it does it, but it gives you your energy level
Hmm.
and it gives you your stress level.
Hmm.
So I don't know how it makes these determinations, and I might not actually feel different, but I've seen my stress be all the way up to 94 and seldom below 60. Okay. That's the kind of couple of years I've had. Okay. And my energy level is seldom above 60 and usually, from 30 to 60. So I've tried various different things to change all that, but it doesn't seem to change very much. So I'm actually wondering how it comes up with these levels. But imagine that we're in interaction. And if I allowed you to see this, you could see my stress level, you could see my energy level, possibly you could see my happiness level, you could see my irritation level. Um,
Yeah, it's like the
so
astronauts,
yeah,
all
I
the
mean, just
telemetry.
imagine all of these emojis or indicators or gauges, around my face as you watch me speak, and that I can then see the rest of you in that way. Some of you may like that, some of you may not like that. But those of us that believe that a lot of interaction happens non-verbally will probably, change behavior, change decisions, change insights based on that information. Forget how it's presented, okay? The UI obviously is going to evolve, but that information, which we get, you know, now via audio and via video, is just limiting. I mean, if we were actually sitting down across a coffee table or dining table from each other, we would get even more. We get the air, we could smell each other, we could actually feel each other's heat. We could feel each other's, magnetic fields, if we're indeed that strong. So there's a number of things we lose when we're actually online, but having video is still more than just having text. And obviously, audio adds, more than text. And eventually all of that just builds and builds and builds and builds. And depending on your skill set, you can read from all of that sensor data or not. One of the things Barry often said was he didn't know how to read people's faces, right? For emotional state. And therefore his face, he says, was quite emotionless to some people. Okay. I myself feel that I can read Barry pretty well after 6 years. Um, Not perfectly, but pretty well. So anyway, I'm just indicating that these interaction styles, the more information you give each other about what happened, maybe some of that says, oh, well, there's a little part of this that says Stacey went partying last night, so she's pretty tired. So don't expect Stacey to stay very much, right? So don't misinterpret that Stacey has checked out simply because she's tired. Okay. Or don't misinterpret that I've checked out simply because I'm not on video because I'm feeding the dogs. Okay. Etc. Etc. Over.
So there are skilled humans who, if they sat in on a meeting, could figure all that out. Um, yeah, and see the angle that I see companies taking AI, like Apple, when they introduced the Vision Pro, it generated your eyes on the screen based on whatever it saw, and it's tracking your eyes. And I feel that that's dangerous technology, tracking gaze, and yeah, who knows what it could be used for. Yeah, so yeah, there's pros and cons, and people would have to. Yeah, you need the transparency. So I know that Rosalind Picard's lab was very transparent with all their subjects, and they agreed to use that data. Yeah. So yeah, I mean AI, it'll help up to a point as long as people understand its limitations and false. It could hallucinate on your emotions too. Go ahead.
If I may, I want to touch on one other aspect, and this is something we spoke about several minutes ago, Kayla, and that is this whole idea of self-deprecation. One of the things I wanted to say about that in the culture is that for me, at least, my understanding of that behavior goes all the way back to the Tao Te Ching from Lao Tzu. And in there's an understanding of things happening in cycles, happening in waves, and everything is balanced, in many ways. So humility is a kind of a way to attenuate a lot of those extremes. And it's a way to acknowledge that, hey, I may be up today, I may not be tomorrow. Don't say anything that I'm going to regret as time passes. Likewise, if someone's having a hard time, don't think badly of them. They're just going through a bad cycle. So both from a sender as well as a receiver mode, having that background, and that is pervasive in the culture, by the way, because that goes back thousands of years, tens of generations, if not hundreds of generations. Okay. And that's deeply steeped in the culture. So when you have something like that so pervasive in the culture, you can't just identify single ways that it manifests. It comes out in many, many, many different ways. So that's another aspect of the self-deprecation, the balance, the yin yang that I wanted to at least make reference to when we're talking about even that one little aspect, which is self-deprecation. Over.
I'll tell a little story. I was once interviewing an Indian man for a programming position, and I totally misjudged him. Like he had a low voice, and it was a good thing there was another guy on the phone uh, with the initial screening. That, uh, but it turns out he was brilliant, and he just couldn't express it clearly over the phone. And so we did hire him, and it turns out, he really contributed a lot to the team. So, you see the perceptual filters that we need to be able to validate them against each other and break through.
Yeah, great point. Kayla.
One of the things that I also wanted to bring up is when we're talking about cultures is to be very careful, especially if we're visiting another country, I think as Westerners, as Americans, we really need to be mindful when visiting that country, because the romanticizing of the countries is also can be a very dangerous thing. When I moved to Hawaii, I was really young. I was 19 years old. I moved there by myself. My parents had never been there before. I was the first in my family to go there. And even though it was a culture that I was familiar with, it wasn't really I wasn't that familiar with it all. And romanticizing that particular culture became kind of my demise, is because I couldn't see the danger that I was putting myself in, because I didn't take the social cues. Not only were the social cues obvious, like for instance, don't trust strangers. I mean, I was hitchhiking at 19, and I almost got assaulted, but thank goodness it didn't happen. And then there was also the respect, the consideration. So all of these things I had to learn, the family dynamics, the elders, just making yourself aware of that culture. And one thing that my dancers had asked me, one in particular, this past week, since the emergence of social media and the Polynesians speaking out, it appears that they don't like when non-Polynesians teach their culture, like for entertainment value, and specifically for monetization. Just that's one thing that's been kind of disdainful, because they do see their culture as something that's educational, as opposed to something that you would profit from. And so anyhow, I just wanted to bring that up, because it can make for a rich topic when we talk about capitalism and its role in society, and to be very mindful of the fact that, you're taking advantage of somebody else's culture that, they might not be able to even live on themselves. There are lots of Polynesians who are very poor according to the Western standards. Even the people who may actually have royalty in their background and their title, they're living in like Whittier, California. So that was just one thing that I wanted to bring up. I'm going to put myself on mute because my dogs are going crazy right now. Another dog is passing by.
So one thing, the people I met yesterday, some of them, they really work very hard, getting up really early, just to have time for themselves before taking care of kids and then taking a train or wherever to get to commute to work. So there's plenty of exhaustion for people who are just trying to make it just to feed a family. And we need to recognize that where people are.
Yeah, that would be the first step. Yeah. Recognizing where people are.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what you guys have been saying. Before I get to that point, there was another aspect. I think either Eric, you or Kayla said something, and it reminded me of another aspect of cultural difference, which is thinking fast or thinking slow. I've often been misinterpreted in corporate settings of not having an opinion or not being with the program simply because I was trying to deeply grok what was being said, as opposed to immediately responding with, oh, and here's what we ought to do, right? This quickness to say, oh, this is what we ought to do, or this is what's going on, I find very, okay, so let me not generalize too much. It was very Silicon Valley. I don't know how pervasive it is in other aspects of the US, but it's definitely very pervasive in Silicon Valley. And I find that, the book, which I haven't read yet, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, finally touches on that point. And I really, really think that it's very valuable to understand, and that's deeply cultural as well. Let me not go too far beyond that because I think Heiner's got this book. Maybe Heiner, you've got something to follow up on and add to on this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I was just preparing something which might fit for you at the end onto further thinking. We struggled with what is dialogue and what is conversation, what is civilization and culture. And these two volumes, initiated by Kofi Annan in '98, are really like my Bible, my Quran, or my holy book. It gives so much important issues on how the heads of states of all the 194 countries were responding to these very deep questions in the UN. It was unfortunately not really made available because some people or some nations, some heads of states have different, not mainline ideas, but it's very interesting and important that maybe one day we look into the mindsets and how they were fumbling, struggling with these questions, because the clash of civilizations and the dialogue among civilizations, these are all very central questions. and they are omitted. No, anyway, I just wanted to listen to you. I like listening to you, and I feel it's awkward. But if you have questions, I can send more. And we definitely, as you are multicultural, multinational, or whatever group here, you might be interested to see what people mean and how different the historical perspective and lens are.
That's right up my alley, Heiner. Thank you.
I just searched for it and I can't yet find it online. I find Google has a reference to it, but not the actual book.
This is a crime. I had the second volume because I have a contribution there on unity in diversity with Cheryl, but the whole book and the whole publisher disappeared because the statements of the heads of states are so relevant and they cannot be edited. Normally, when you're with a publisher, you delete something or highlight something or whatever, but this is not available when you have a proceeding from the General Assembly of the United Nations. So it was a big void after 2001. And then many years later, UNESCO took it on and they called it Dialogue of Civilizations. And all this is a struggling point for me for 25 years. If we don't really say what the Iranians meant, what the Africans meant, what the people from South America with indigenous knowledge meant, and what they felt is needed for a dialogue among civilizations, then we are not getting anywhere. But anyway, I have to leave, but I was so smashed with the input from Eric that I want to send you a link to indigenous knowledge and indigeneity, what Notebook LM did out of a presentation of mine. No,
Thank you.
I felt horribly bad that I interrupted your conversations by just trying to put out a slide.
It's fine.
Actually, no, Heiner, I did find, Perplexity found it for me in the UNESCO library. And I think I just posted the link. So that I think there's a digital version of that book. Haven't gone through it yet, but it's promising. Okay.
The two volumes?
At least one. It says Dialogue Among Civilizations. It says the Round Table on the Eve of the United Nations Millennium Summit.
Who is the author?
Kofi Annan, Koichiro Matsuura, Syed Mohammed Khatami, Abdelaziz Bouteflika, Edouard Shevardnadze. Shevardnadze is there. Abdurrahman Wahid.
I mean, there are the best and the brightest and the most important people, but I doubt that you get the original texts. You send it to me. I'm happy that I brought it over, even when it was an accident.
It's a link right now in the chat. So, Heiner, if you click on that link, you can tell me whether that's the thing you were referring to.
I will.
Okay. And then also, I wanted to follow up on something that Kayla said, which is this cultural appropriation aspect of teaching someone else's culture. This appears for me quite a bit. Most of us who have at least done some martial arts see this a lot, that who's your teacher? Oh, well, that person's not really of the right lineage, or oh, that's a branch of this particular version, or this style is not really Yang style, it's a branch of a Yang style, it's Sun style, it's Wu style, or Oh, well, it's not Yang, it's Chen style. So a lot of this appropriateness of passing down the authority to teach happens in martial arts, it happens in music. What Kayla's saying is it happens in dance as well. Probably happens in most crafts and most artistic disciplines. But definitely I've seen it in these two areas, music and martial arts. Maybe in science it happens too, because hey, if you follow one particular professor, then you know kind of like that space in which this research is done and how it's being done and what data they have access to. But I'm not an academic in that way, so I don't have quite as much experience there. Um, but anyway, I wanted to reinforce that theme that you had mentioned, Kayla, on this. Over. Anyway, Heiner, is that the right link? Is that the right content or not?
Unfortunately not. The original is 2 volumes and it's 4 times the pages.
Okay. Anyway,
I I know that one, but I told you it's a crime.
yeah.
You see, the publisher uh, had to go out of office. They were the most credible international intercultural publishers because when you have to withdraw all your books and can you not sell them anymore, uh, it's actually a very interesting story, but this is not part of the interest of this group.
Actually, I think it is, at least for me. But it doesn't have to be now. We can definitely do it at a future time. Because it's 9:30. I guess you have to depart. But hey, Heiner, bring that back in a future session, okay? Not next Saturday, because next Saturday, hopefully we'll see all of you here for our celebration of Barry's life. But either, next Sunday or beyond.
What is the schedule for such a day?
That is one thing I wanted to shift to today because we're in the last half hour. I was hoping that Stacey could suggest a few ways we can conduct that conversation next Saturday. Is now a good time to bring that up?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you guys how you want to do it. When I led Stewart's memorial, I actually played a song at first just to get people to, meditate on him and hold him, in their heart. I have a song that I would contribute that to me says Barry. Even the video said Barry. And then I just asked if anybody wanted to speak, and it was very casual. If you want to be more formal, that, that's fine too.
Hmm. I think we can also play it by ear depending on the number of people that arrive. I didn't see more than a handful of likes on that announcement. So I actually don't know how many people plan on coming next Saturday, but at least hopefully it'll be us,
May I suggest something?
please.
Anybody who wants to speak or wants to present some type of a slideshow or like a video, maybe you can ask them like if put in the post or a follow-up chat and say, anybody that would like to make a presentation, let me know so we can add you into, so we can give you some time so that there's some type of agenda, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Actually, it doesn't have to be me. It would be great if you want to post that follow up to the announcement, or Stacy, or even Eric. You're posting of your little summary, not little, sorry, sorry for using that word, but your summary of the ChatGPT distillation as well. So look, it's a group event here. It's not something. I mean, I made that announcement simply because Stacy said, please do it. So I did it.
Would that be helpful, Stacey, if I wrote something in there and said, if anyone wants to do a presentation, just let us know so we can be sure to set you up and have you share your screen.
Well, the problem is that I don't think we have anybody willing to do that tech piece, and I can't do it.
What do you mean? If
Share a
anybody has
screen?
a presentation, we can easily incorporate that here into the Zoom session next week.
So like, for example, I sent the song that I'd like to have played. I sent that. You have that, right?
So if you want, you can play it or I can play it, during the session or anybody else.
It should be quite simple to play the song for everybody. I will have to say that I cannot be in charge because unfortunately my role as mom is ever evolving, especially on the weekends when I have to concentrate on my kids.
Mhm.
But I will be there.
I think we could play it by ear and judge, like, when is it an appropriate time to talk and share something.
Yeah.
I think
I
so.
think, Stacy's a great way to open. Stacy wants to open up with some thoughts and maybe the song and set the stage the way you did for, was it
Stuart.
Stuart? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's plan on that.
Okay, great.
Then I'll go from Stacy to you, Eric, and then whoever else wants to pipe up. And I have like 2 or 3 stories I'd like to share. I didn't put it in the presentation, but I have some bullet points that I'll speak from.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to speak very little. The song will be my contribution.
Okay.
Couple of words.
And then hopefully, get some people from Barry's IRL that can then participate, and
I don't think that I'm not thinking people from his real world are going to be here. I think, like, I know Jen wants to be here. I think it's going to be people that, he knew he might have met once, but I think it's going to be people like us mostly.
I have no way of knowing. Like, for example, Barry's nephew now has Barry's Facebook account. So I don't know who he might have shared that with.
Well, we'll see. We're both just guessing.
Right. I'm not attached either way. I'm just saying, we shared it. Who knows who's gonna actually, disseminate it further. I mean, I could think that maybe Anne Marie might join. I don't know about
Yeah, I think, like, yes, I think people like that are going to be the people that
right.
are going to come.
And the professor from MIT, I forget her.
Rosalind Picard.
Exactly, right. And
Will she? I'm hoping she even sees it.
yeah,
Like, that's what she never saw my message.
I don't know. You would think somebody on MIT would have some access to some of these facilities, even if they don't regularly do it.
Heiner?
Way to know it.
I was not. I
Dave Tech
was.
from Australia even liked that uh, posting as well. Yeah, Heiner, you're about to say?
Yes, I was not thinking about saying anything, but reflecting now, the most extended conversation I had with Barry about his ordeal with Wikipedia and the ethics of Wikipedia and all this. But that would need me to really go back to the source materials of Barry to not say bullshit, but really be able to cite him and maybe say how I see it,
Mm-hmm.
because we were very much on the same level on the dangers and possibilities of such encyclopedias and repositories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would need to think about it, but as you were just brainstorming here, it just came up.
Yep. Well, we have a week or 6 days.
So if anybody's still perplexed, I have the guide for the perplexed. It's 650 pages. It's by Moses
Not enough.
Maimonides. No,
I need the guide to the vexed and perplexed.
yeah, that's what you need to write next. I didn't read it yet.
Is the author Barry Court? No,
It should be. But this is someone from the Middle Ages. They were even more perplexed back then.
yeah. I might actually reach out to Sam Chan this week and see if he
That'd be
can
nice.
for that session.
Be good to see him again.
If he doesn't, then I'll have to tell some Sam Chan stories.
Sure.
I'll give him that as a threat. I'm just kidding. By the way, I've also been thinking, what do you guys feel about oh, I haven't told you and Heiner yet, Eric. Eric and Heiner, I'm going to be in Taiwan September 6th through September 13th.
Hmm.
So at that time, I won't be able to run these sessions. So
Right.
does somebody want to step forward and be kind of like the host, or do we want to take a hiatus? I'm okay anyway. You guys want to play this?
It's hard for me to plan ahead right now. Some uncertainty.
Hmm.
Let's
I
play
mean,
by
a
ear.
minimum, I could start the session, or I could, give somebody else, host privileges, and you know, maybe if opportunity presents itself, I could actually be on the entire session, but I'm not planning on it, so I
Right.
just want to make that up front.
Well, if you have the 6-digit code,
Hmm.
anyone anyway can take over the moderator seat.
Yeah.
So this is not the problem. My problem, same like Eric, is I'm rented by the hour, and I normally don't know what I do the other day or night. So I also don't qualify. We need another Barry, as I said before.
Well, as I found, berries are rare and hard to come across.
Mhm.
Anyway, I just want to raise that. We have another week or two before that. Actually, no, we have a whole month before we have to really settle that issue. I just wanted to let you guys know. And the other aspect of it is it might actually be even longer if I choose to make another side trip after the Taiwan trip to either Japan or Thailand or Vietnam.
I
And
think you
come
should.
back via Berlin.
That's, that's not in the same general vicinity.
It's just a matter of eastbound or westbound.
It's a matter of how many, mileage points I've got.
The Pacific is lots of mileage, and the westbound is not much more, I tell you.
We'll see whether we can work that into mileage plus points. Okay, so anyway, that's my disclosure for what's happening mid-September. Anything else? Oh, we still have 20 minutes.
That's rare.
Well, I'm happy to say goodbye until next week.
Shall we call it a day then?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks all. Good to see you all today.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye.
bye for now.